Hello there, this is Starlight. I'm a Lua developer, and this is episode 2 of my Lua tutorials. And as I said in episode 0, I will be showing you guys, and I will be making a weapon, a scripted weapon, alongside with you. So in this part of the tutorial, I will be showing you the code of currently what the swap is, and then from this point I may add things or I may change how it works. So at the moment it's not 113 lines of code because of the amount of spaces and stuff there are in between each function, because I intend to add things in that area. The likelihood of how it's going to go is I'm not going to use them, and so I will probably put them together at one point. So to begin with, add CS Lua file. This was in the entity part. This is, as I said before, sending this Lua file over to the client side, and so that you can read and understand what the client needs to do. Next, gets its name, swap for YouTubers. This means that is it this one? Yep. Okay, so if I go into weapons and see here, swap for YouTubers. Next, I've got the author, which is of course me. So if I press 1 and go to it, or wherever it is, where it is found, go to contact, the purpose, and instructions. They're basically the same thing. The slot, it starts from 0, goes up to 7, I believe, though the likelihood is you can probably go above that. This is where it is likely to be found, in what order. It doesn't really matter unless you want it to always be at the bottom and then set it to a ridiculously big number. Spawnable, this means whether it appears in the queue menu. This I've got to false, because I don't really want these, and that I've just gone with. I probably can have that. I don't need that there. So this doesn't draw the ammo in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, and this doesn't draw your crosshair. The view model doesn't really matter, as we have this thing here which puts us into third person. Again, this doesn't really matter. Infinite is what the -1 means. Infinite. False ammo is none, so nothing. And same here. And this just doesn't draw the world model. So this can be anything, but this was a dual elite. This sets the whole type to be magic. So it's where you've got a hand, your left hand to your hand, and the other one is out in front of you. It's the animation which you get when you're moving something, when you've clicked drive. This is swap set up data tables. So itself is referring to the swap here, and this is skill type. We will be adding in probably power or skill power along, which will be a float. This is an int and slot to 0. And is set to by default by 1. We'll work on this in the next episode mostly, because this will be working with our table and adding in multiple abilities. Because at the moment we only have one ability. Cool. Just need to check that. Next then, play weapon sound. This just plays the sound. It's nice and easy just to have a function like this, so that I don't need to keep on writing the same lines of code over and over again. I can just go with play sound, and it will play it. Set next attack. This is like a cooldown function, so you have it. Yes, we have that. Primary attack. This is when you left click, or whatever you got to mouse +1. So if self get targeted is here. It's a tracing of finding a player, or an entity in this case. Next thing is, so if it finds it, it returns. So, cool thing with how an if statement works in this sense is that if something is returned, then it can interpret it as a boolean of there is something there, it is true. If there is a false, then of course it returns, it says it's not true, I don't want to run this bit of code. And so this is just making it so that you can get the player and, well, entity or player. And so as it's returning, this is true if it gets to this bit of the code. If not, it's else. And there's no else, so it's just end. So then local end is equal to self get targeted. This time, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. This time, if you've got this bit here, so if it returns false, it's not going to run it. So therefore, you're not going to get an error here when you try and set the velocity where the entity is nil, because it's made sure that entity is true. Then local end is equal to this entity here, which has of course been found from our iTrace. Again, this is here, just so I can't have Lua in one thing. I may put some of them in here and there. It depends on what I've been doing before I wrote the script, as in some coding languages that is important, and I'm messing around quite a bit with SQL at the moment, and you always want to put one of them. Okay, next is local players equal to self.owner. This, you'll notice, has been played throughout most of the code, and as it was in the entity before, it just means who currently has the swap equipped, and then it gets the ent from this bit of code, sets the velocity, then it gets the player aim vector, turns it by that, and adds a vector 300. 300 lifts them off the ground so that I can push them backwards, and this just makes them go 1024 in the direction of my aim vector, and then it plays the sound of the alt fire. Primary attack is local apply self.owner, then it sets my velocity this time with my aim vector, that, and then we have the cooldown. The cooldown will be called in other places, so in this case it is only a one hit because there's a trace, because traces only hit once and then they're useless. This, however, actually it's not useless, it's really hard to hit something again with the trace when it's flying in the air. This one, as it's been called, this will just keep on running and running, and as it's a player, the velocity gets increased and increased and increased as it applies to, and so you'll just go flying across the map instead of going slowly forward, which is what you want. Okay then, let's hop into game and let me show you the swap. So here's the swap for YouTubers. As you can see, I did kill someone thing. Sorry about the low frames, but if I left click, he goes up in the air, and if I keep going left click, he flies up, and right click launches me like this. There isn't yet something which will stop my full damage. I'll do that in the next video. So that is most of the code there. Apart from this hook here. I do need to rename the hook. That's because I didn't write this, I just took it from one of my other swaps. I modified this bit here because I didn't like the positioning. So this is calc view, so this is calculating the view of the player. This is just the hook name, it can be anything as long as it's not a duplicate of it. Function, player, this is the player, position, and the angle. So this is saying if the player is not valid, or if the player isn't alive, or if the player is in a vehicle, or the player view entity is not equal to the player. So this is, let's say if I'm using a camera or something, this won't intervene. The issue is that on certain things it doesn't set the view entity with certain things, and so this works rather annoyingly in some cases. Local trace, so this is again a trace which we had before. This is a different form of trace than the one which we use here, as this is a trace which has already been roughly defined This is not. So it's looking for an entity, and what this filter here does, I'll go up this bit a bit later. So this finds the player here, and this finds the weapon, and it ignores them, because otherwise you'll end up hitting the player and going, found a player, found something, put it here. Next is start position. This is where it starts. So this starts after the player, and the import is position minus forward angle times 100. This is 100 backwards. I probably should also add the up thing here as well. That actually might make it look a bit better. So let's actually do that. Yep, I can spell today. Yep. Times. Sorry, I'm touch typing, and touch typing doesn't go well when I'm tired. So this is the minimum of what it can be, and this is the max of where the trace can go. And then it returns here the angles. Okay, this now is just if the trace hits something, then it returns the a different value. Okay, and as you'll see, part of the code is changed, and that looks a lot more seamless than changing. Before it looked a bit glitchy. And of course I forgot to change the window, so you didn't see that. Let me show that for you now. Yeah, so a lot more seamless, moving out, moving in, and up you go. Not really. It's a bit annoying when they get stuck here, because you need to do something like this and then slowly lift him like that and slowly lift away. But then hopefully you won't be in a map the size which is 124 by 124 in size, so it'll be a bit bigger than this. In the next episode we'll be looking at how we can implement a table, and the ability we coded a bit earlier. Well, in the data table here of the skill type. We'll be looking into adding more powers and probably also a HUD along with it. This is Starlight, and I'm signing out.